I am now calling to order the September 24, 2015 meeting of the West Hollywood Rent Stabilization Commission. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call?
Commissioner Gregoire? Here. Commissioner Topchin?
Here.
Commissioner Harker?
Here.
Vice Chair Maggio?
Present.
Chair Saines?
Here. Thank you. With respect to the agenda, are there any changes that need to be made?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No. No opposition. The motion passes. Now we come to approval of the minutes of the September 10, 2015 meeting. Are there any amendments necessary?
Yes, I was going to note that that after the commission deliberated on the hearing, I made a motion to simply affirm the hearing examiner's decision. I didn't reference the adoption of a resolution. So, but I would move adoption of the minutes as amended.
Second.
Do we have a second? Oh.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And we have one abstention. The motion passes. The minutes are adopted. We now come to the public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening? No, we have none. So we move to the director manager's report.
Good evening, Commission. Looking ahead at the coming meeting, October 8th, we did have 2 appeals scheduled. Both of those appeals have been withdrawn by the folks submitting. So we'll go ahead and cancel that meeting and move the 2 presentation items, which on affordable housing and on reasonable accommodations, to October 22nd. This concludes my manager's report.
Thank you. Are there any commission comments this evening?
Yes, if I may. Recently, someone brought to my attention that regarding the Ellis Act, that under that act, and I believe Santa Monica is one of the municipalities who has done this, they do allow for an ordinance by a municipality to be in place, and in regard to housing that is demolished, that is rent stabilized. For instance, say there's 10 units, they're being demolished, everyone's been Ellis'd out, the developer comes in, they build more units, apartment units. And there is a way to then, I like to call it reboot the Ellis Act, and have those new units be under rent stabilization. I don't know for a fact if it's at a new rate, at market rate. I believe when I was discussing it with council, I believe that there are different cutoffs. If it's 5 years, the people who had been living there could move back in, but we're not sure, and this is something that I thought going forward we could find out the details of this and perhaps have an ordinance in the city of West Hollywood. Again, it would help protect those low and moderate income people who are living in their long-time units. It would help protect, if not those people coming back, it might help people going forward. There was a situation at Hancock Apartments where the rent, I believe, as we know, those were built as condos. They did not sell, so they converted it and were renting them as apartments. And I have a friend who lived there, was paying $3,500 for a one-bedroom unit, and then all of a sudden, one year, the landlord upped it to $4,000. So he didn't want to pay that large of an increase, and he moved into the Dillon with many more amenities and things for $3,300. But again, I believe the Dillon and the Huxley would have fallen under that. I don't know if this can be retroactive. I doubt that. But, you know, there's nothing to prevent landlords of new projects from jacking up the rent till people have to move. And so I'm hoping that going forward, we might look into that. I will be happy to contact Santa Monica and see what the language is in their ordinance and bring that back. And perhaps the staff could help me with that. Thank you.
Mr. Director, is that something that can be done? Some kind of a report or?
We could certainly look into that.
All right, thank you.
May I ask the manager about these information coordinator cards that have been presented to us?
Sure, I was going to cover that in my my comments at closing the meeting.
Okay,
but,
I'll wait.
happy to. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further? Yes, thank you. Any further commission comments?
Not at this time.
No? That brings us now to our appeal, D4024, 8732 Rangeley Avenue. Neither of the parties is here tonight, so I suppose we'll just begin with the staff report.
Thank you. Joel Zetzer has been a tenant in one unit of a duplex at 8732 Rangeley since April 1990. His initial rent was $580. In December 2014, a new owner presented him with a new lease for a rental amount of $2,000. He testified that he signed the lease without understanding his rights under the city's rent stabilization ordinance. At a hearing to determine the maximum allowable rent and whether the landlord had collected and retained amounts above the lawful rent, the hearing examiner determined that the MAR is $660 and that the landlord had retained $8,040 in excess of the MAR. The landlord has appealed solely on the grounds that he did not receive notice of the hearing. Staff recommends that the Commission deny the appeal and affirm the hearing examiner's decision. The owner failed to file a registration amendment notifying the city of the change of ownership and the new owner's contact information, as the RSO requires. Nevertheless, the city did notify the new owner using an address listed on the December 2014 lease. Thus, even though the city had satisfied the notice requirements under the RSO, based on the city's records, the Rent Stabilization Division went beyond the requirements to also notify the new owner at an address that he provided for the purpose of collecting rent. Thank you.
Would any of you like to initiate the discussion?
I'm happy to go ahead and say that I reviewed the record, and I believe the hearing examiner's decision is supported by the evidence in the record before us. Therefore, I would affirm the hearing examiner's decision with respect to the maximum allowable rent, and that the landlord had retained $8,040 in excess of the MAR.
Thank you. Commissioner Topshin, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I too agree with the examiner's findings. They're correct based on the record evidence, and the examiner correctly determined the maximum allowable rent to be $660, and that the landlord retained over $8,000 in excess of the maximum allowable rent, so I have no problem with affirming the examiner's decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Harkin?
I concur with my fellow commissioners and the hearing examiner. Just one note that the fact that Mr. Ilulian felt that he had not received the notice, I did note when I went to check this that he in fact is part owner of the 8723 Rangeley property, so I think that that's one and the same, and we know that it went to both of those addresses. Also, just a quick note on page 19 in our packets. I meant to mention this prior to this, but number 3, under findings of fact, I wanted to make sure, I'm sure it's a typo, but because of the similarity of the names with Philip Ilulian and Philip Newman, then it says, and the Nyman Family Trust. I'm assuming that should be the Newman Family Trust, just in case, for future reference. But I do also, I'm more than willing to support the hearing examiner's decision in this case. Thank you.
Commissioner Maggio, welcome back.
Thank you. I'd like to mention that Section 1728.010, which D specifically of the Rent Stabilization Ordinance, does state indeed that a landlord must file a registration amendment with the city within 30 days of a change in a rental unit's ownership or management, or a change in the owner's or manager's contact information. I wanted to bring that up, which brings me to agreeing with the staff recommendation. And I would be willing even to make a motion if we're ready for one.
Okay. I would say that I am in agreement with my colleagues, and I think that the facts of the case are so compelling that that explains why there are no parties here to argue it tonight. So I concur. Would you care to make that motion? Oh, yes.
I just had one more thing to ask Ms. Regan. Apparently, and I believe I read this in here, the ultimate goal is for the landlord to demolish this property. If they're going to be paying back the $8,040, but there's a possibility that that tenant will not be in that unit going forward, and I know that they can bank, it could be deducted over the months, and it doesn't come up to that $8,000, would the landlord then be responsible for paying the remainder to the tenant who, if in fact they are Ellis'd out?
Yes, they would. And the tenant would have recourse through small claims court, for example.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Maggio, did you want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to adopt Resolution RSC, which is 15-476, a resolution of the the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood, affirming the hearing examiner's decision on D-4024, 8732 Rangeley Avenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Gregoire,
Aye.
Commissioner Topchin,
Aye.
Commissioner Harker,
Aye.
Vice Chair Maggio,
Aye.
Chair Saines.
Aye. The motion carries. So that concludes the appeals. We come to public comments, and there are apparently no public comments tonight. Do we have any more commission comments?
I have one pleasant comment. Since we can say what we like. No. I wanted to remind everyone, members of the public, anyone watching, that, of course, our fabulous Arts and Cultural Affairs Department provides many entertainment and cultural projects throughout the year. And we are in the middle of a run of free Shakespeare in the Park. Plummer Park is hosting a Lovers and Madmen production of Taming of the Shrew. And the next performance is tomorrow at 7 o'clock, with one performance on Saturday, 2nd and 3rd, also at 7 o'clock. It is so charming. I saw it last week, and it's taking place in the courtyard of historic Great Hall Long Hall, our recently designated national treasure. And so I hope everyone can come out and see it. Free theater, can't pass it up. Shakespeare, Taming of the Shrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harker. Any comments? Commissioner Topchin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to share some good news also. This is from City of Berkeley when they won their Court of Appeal case regarding bad faith eviction. Court of Appeal upheld Berkeley's rent control regulation prohibiting market rate rent increase after evicting a tenant under false pretense. Here, what happened is the landlord evicted the tenant for landlord occupancy. The reason was for owner occupancy, and he never moved into the unit. So the City of Berkeley won the case, and this is a huge victory, I guess, for every rent control, rent stabilized jurisdiction. And that's just great news.
Would you repeat the name of the case?
I'm trying to find that, and I can't see it here. Give me a moment if I find it.
No problem.
Yeah.
Fine. Are there any further commission comments? Do we have any staff comments?
I did want to explain why I provided some cards for you with your packets this evening. I realized from time to time, folks, community members are going to approach the commission with questions on rent stabilization and rent stabilization and housing issues. And I wanted to make sure that the commission had a resource that you could provide. We do have 5 information coordinators on staff, highly trained and knowledgeable members of the City Hall, and they're available to answer any range of questions on rent stabilization and housing. And so these are their official business cards. Of course, they have their own that has their names on it, but this is for the information coordinators in general, and it provides the information hotline number, which is 323-848-6450. That's my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one comment as well.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that in that case, the City of West Hollywood joined the City of Santa Monica in filing an amicus brief for that case. So that was nice that we were able to do that.
Great to know. And we're talking about this. I think I found the case. There was an Alameda County case, and there is a number. That's what I see it here in the email they sent to me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Commissioner Harker, did you have another comment?
I thought of one more thing. I am pleased to announce, which things you probably already know, but for those of you in the viewing audience, Governor Brown did finally sign a bill releasing, this is part of the redevelopment agency. The dissolution happened 4 years ago of those agencies, and a lot of money has been in limbo. And so in regard to housing, the City of West Hollywood will receive $5.65 million for affordable housing, and that's always a good thing. Thank you.
Yes. Commissioner Maggio, you touched your microphone.
I have no comments, although in today's world, $5 million is not very much money.
Well, 6 million.
All right, 6 million.
It's $1 million more than 5, so. Any further comments? No? Then, no further staff comments? All right. Then we come to that moment known as adjournment. And the next regular meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission will be held, no, it's not going to be October 8th, right?
October 22nd.
October 22nd, 2015, in the West Hollywood Park Public Meeting Room, Council Chambers. This meeting is adjourned.